Hello folks, welcome to Legacy IS Academy. In this video, we will be discussing about your Iran hostage crisis, or in other terms, when did once an ally of USA become into your hostility, full-fledged hostility between your USA and Iran. So much so that now your USA, Israel and Iran are amidst a huge fight and chaos in your West Asia, which is having its ripple effects throughout the world, so much so that if this continues, this is going to go into global recession, global shock, and the effects of this is so much so that the world is paying for the price of the war in West Asia. So when exactly did once US and Iran ally become your US and Iran as enemies? Okay. Largely, we will be centering our video around your Iran hostage crisis, but we will be discussing a brief background also as to what led to this in the first place, or your Iran's revolution. Understanding? So, the timeline that we will be discussing is from 1979 to 1981. So, what exactly happened in your Iran hostage crisis? Just a few background I will give you. For 444 days, 52 hostages were held. Okay. Now, before this, why these hostages were held, or what was the reason behind such thing? Let's see what was the background of Iran at this particular point of time. See, your 1978 to 79 period, there was a revolution. Before this revolution in Iran, Iran was ruled by your Shah, okay, by your Shahs. Now, your 78-79 revolution overthrew the Pahlavi dynasty and established Iran into an Islamic state or a theocratic state. Okay, this was led by your Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini. Understanding, after this, the 78-79 Islamic revolution or your Iran's revolution is where things took a turn from US Iran ally to your US Iran enemy. Understanding? So, when this was there, aftermath of 78-79 revolution made Iran into a theocratic state, which means the revolution was largely targeted at anti-Westernism, anti-USA, and following strict Shariat laws. Understanding? Then how was it before your, let's say, revolution means? When exactly did they, why specifically your 78-79 revolution, they were angry against your Westernism? Or why were they against West? Why were they against specifically Europe and USA? For which the answer lies in something that happened in 1953. See, the culmination was there from over the years. Understanding, this was not just overnight by something that happened, so they became anti-West or anti-colonialism, all those things concept was there, was because in 1953, there was one particular leader, okay, by the name Mohammad Mossadegh. What happened was, this particular person was a very popular leader. Okay, he was the prime minister of Iran from 1951 to 53. He was a Western educated jurist. He was a very much nationalistic leader who felt that you have to do something for your citizens' well being, because at that particular point of time, Iran was also struggling. Struggling how? Economically, financially. All this was there despite having one thing. They had a golden goose in their hand. What was that golden goose? That was your rich oil sources of Iran. But this oil sources was not in the hands of your Iran. The oil that was taken from Iran was making someone else rich. So what he decided was, if my people have to benefit from this, then one way I can do is through your nationalization of Iranian oil. Iran's oil wealth, everything should benefit your Iranian people and not your private Western companies. Okay, these private Western companies were the ones which were trying to, or which were the ones who were controlling your Iranian oil. So he was against your colonial and imperial principles. Understanding? Now, once he nationalized, or once he said about the Iranian oil going to become only for Iranian people, your private companies were facing loss. Yes. So for that, what happened? A coup was conducted in Iran in 1953. Okay, this was brought about by your US and UK collaboration. Okay, now through your CIA and MI6, they bought the coup, they targeted Mohammad Mossadegh, and he was overthrown. Okay, he was a nationalist leader, populist leader, okay, democratic leader, but he was overthrown. This coup was conducted by your 28 Mordad coup, which was aiming at regime change and shift in a power. Now, once he was thrown away, Muhammad Mossadegh was removed. The coup leader, the one who led the coup, was your Fazlullah Zahidi. Now, this person ended up becoming, this was a military backed government. This person ended up becoming the Prime Minister of Iran. Now, once he became the Prime Minister, certain things changed in the Iranian regime. What was that? Look at this. With the military backed government coming into power post your coup, it strengthened the position of your Shah dynasty. Means Muhammad Reza Shah Pahlavi got strengthened with your military backed government, the prime minister backing. Now, with this, what your Shah dynasty, that is your Shah empire, started doing was it started westernizing. Okay, westernizing, modernization, and also land modernization. All of these concepts starts. Alongside this, your monarchy rule got strengthened. Authoritarian regime was increasing. Understanding? The opposition were suppressed, Western influences were adopted, and especially your US and UK influence was very strongly felt in Iran. This coupled with, see, what he did not think about was your USA, UK influence, you are putting it in Iran, but how exactly does it sit in the Iranian society? That they miscalculated. Okay, your westernization went up to be called as westoxification in Iran. Excessive westernization made them feel a sense of alienation with their ulemas and peasants. Understanding this continued and created an anger. Now, this is what led to your long term public resentment, anti West sentiment, which further goes on to your anti Shah protests, which further leads to your 1979 Islamic resolution, and further which led to your Iran hostage crisis. Now, how was this Iran under your Shah rule? If you see, Shah rule under this point of time was under Muhammad Reza Shah Pahlavi, who was a very close ally of USA. His main reforms were targeted around your modernization and white revolution, as in your land was modernized, which cut off the traditional contact between your ulemas and peasants. And further, this led to a lot of political repression by using your secret police called Savak. Okay, this also increased growing inequality again because of the policies of the West, where they were trying to drain the resources of Iran. And this also started having strong religious opposition in the form of your West toxification. More of Shah was just viewed as a puppet of your USA in Iran. Yeah, all this was going on one side. The public anger started growing against the Shah regime was because Inflation was very high at this point of time. People were protesting against the government because of this. So then what happens, the issue is again same with the Savak. When people were protesting, citing huge inflation, they came down with huge amount of protests on the innocent civilians. This further rising income inequality coupled with your cultural westernization, etc., with the rising inflation made people completely more of isolated with the Iranian regime. So much so that they wanted to topple the regime. At this point of time is where your cleric, okay, or your one section led by Khomeini, Ayatollah Khomeini, had now felt that they had to overthrow your Shah regime. So in this, what happened? They deposed the ruler. Okay, Shah regime was deposed, but there was rumors held that he escaped to USA. Why? Because the close aides of Shah had held that he had a cancer treatment which is available only in USA in your New York hospital. So first he fled to Egypt and then he went to USA. Now reports broke down in Iran stating that okay, he is taking refuge in USA. Immediately protests started. Protests started from the people stating that Shah has to be returned back. Now, where did they initially start the protest? Means they wanted to do a sit-in in front of your American embassy. But then, this when the report broke out that he is taking refuge in your USA, this became more angrier, which means people, some armed, some non-armed, entered and they captured. Where they entered and captured 66 Americans in the embassy. Understanding? They held them for a duration of 444 days. In between, what happened, we will be seeing. But one important thing that has to be seen here is initially, okay, this particular aspect of the protest of holding them hostages was having the objective of bringing Shah back to Iran to be trying for the trial, and then take back all of Shah's wealth. This was how it was. But then what happened was, aftermath, that is your Ayatollah Khamenei's power has to now been showcased as to what the regime is capable, turned and extended this hostage crisis. Okay, so what happens? 1978 pe mass protests begin in Iran because they were complaining about rising inflations. January 1979, Shah flees Iran. At this point of time, your Ayatollah Khamenei, he returns from exile to take power or assume power in Iran in February 1979. After this, your Shah dynasty is overthrown and an Islamic Republic is established in April 1979. Late 1979 onwards, your anti-American sentiment starts becoming the uproar or the mainstream of the revolution. Understanding? Now look at this. Your US embassy, why was it the target in this means? Your US embassy was seen as a symbol of constant interference in your Iranian regime or your Iranian lives. So that is why they targeted your Iranian USA embassy. So the revolutionary leader Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini comes into power. Now, what happens means immediate cause. Why was the embassy immediately seized? Means October 22nd, 1979, report starts flowing around that your Shah is admitted for cancer treatment in USA in the New York hospital. Now, as a way to pressurize US to bring back or extradite your Shah to your Iran for trying against him, was the immediate response in trying to hold the US embassy hostage. Now, in this, they seized November 4th, 1979, the students who had gone for protest stormed into your US embassy in Tehran, the heart of your Iran, and 66 Americans were captured, and this was further supported and backed by your Khomeini revolutionary leader. Initially, they captured 66 people. Okay. Later, that is 13 people who were women and African American people were released. When these people were held hostages, initially what they told was these people were acting as espionage, or they were spies. Okay, but these people, the women and your African American people, were released stating that they are not spies. The rest were held. 53 people were held for 444 days. Eventually, one was released because the person fell gravely ill. So, 52 hostages now. Now, what happened at that point of time? Your US president was Jimmy Carter. Now, when Jimmy Carter was the president, immediately they opened a negotiation. Diplomatic channels were opened in order to get the release of your hostages. Now, what happened in the first instance was your Iran was not allowing for any diplomatic visits nor for any negotiations. What your Iran first claimed was its negotiation that it needed from USA was Shah has to be brought back to Iran. Shah's wealth has to be reclaimed by Iran. For which USA replied as, see, you can put a case of claiming back Shah's wealth in your US courts. So much so that we will even set up a commission to look into the humanitarian rights violations done by Shah. But this all will happen only after you release the hostages. Okay, so this was going on, but nothing yielded efforts. Okay, nothing was yielding fruits. Finally, what happened? Your USA wanted to pressurize Iran by putting lot of financial pressure, economic sanctions, and also they started freezing your Iranian assets in your US banks. Billions of dollars were frozen. Alongside this, in order to put a pressure on them, they put a oil embargo. They stopped purchasing your Iranian oil. Now, initially, it was not much of a difficulty or hassle for your Iran, but eventually, as we enter 1980s, things start taking a turn for your Iran also. At the same meanwhile, what happens is your US President Jimmy Carter tried to go through all your diplomatic moves by entering into a UN complaint that is getting an international condemnation. All its aides were fighting against, they were criticizing this move of holding the hostages. Your International Court of Justice also sided with USA on this, but still nothing was yielding any results. Finally, one more thing they tried to do, a rescue mission. What happens in this rescue mission? Look at this. April 1980, because they are not able to fruitfully yield any diplomatic mission, they thought they will conduct a military operation. That was your Operation Eagle Claw. This was a US military rescue operation which was to be done on April 24, 25th of 1980. In this, what happened? Your one set of US soldiers were to land, collect the refugees. They were still held in embassy only, and then take them from there by air escape. But in between, what happened? Of the 8 helicopters, 2 malfunctioned. And also, one of those helicopters in an accident met with aircraft plane, which was plane transport aircraft. Both collided, and this led to the failure of the operation. The hostages could not be rescued, but also one more thing happened was all the 8 soldiers in it were killed. The bodies were left behind. Now, what happened? The bodies of these 8 soldiers were paraded around in your Iranian television. This further was met with huge humiliation for your US president. Now they went on into a full mode where there are scenarios that one side your US president has the pressure to now bring back the bodies of the people. That is somehow try diplomatic ways possible. Second thing is, as opposition to this rescue mission, Secretary of State once he uh, resigned. And all this was further affecting your US reputation. Its prestige was very badly handled, and also it took a huge hit. Internationally, it received, this particular event received huge condemnation from both your UN Security Council, which called for the immediate release of hostages. International Court of Justice ruled against Iran. Most of the countries supported United States, and in this, there were certain um, people from your US embassy who was not caught, but they were hiding in your Canadian embassy. They were smuggled out, that is, they were somehow brought out of that situation by your Canada and your CIA. This was called as your Canadian caper. Now what happened, there was huge pressure in America to somehow get the bodies of the dead soldiers back. So they found a neutral, that is third party country, to help in the diplomatic negotiations. That was your Algeria. Algeria acted as a key mediator in order to get the things done. What was the things done? That is, get the bodies of the dead soldiers back. Alongside this, now certain things changed in the international aspect also. What is that? July 1980, Shah was uh, dead. He succumbed to cancer. Now, at the same point of time, September 1980, Iran-Iraq war began. Now, when your Iran-Iraq war began, the scenario right now of Iran is its financial support is completely frozen. Its assets, Iranian assets are frozen in US. First thing. Second thing is, it is not able to intercept your Iraq, which means the oil embargo is affecting Iran even more badly. Now, because in order to somehow deal with this situation, your Iran was ready for negotiations. According to your Algeria's accord, your US was to unfreeze all your Iranian assets, and here in this case, your Shah was again dead. But what happened here was his wealth was to be claimed by Iran, and also US pledged that it will not interfere into your um, internal matters of Iran. And this point of time, okay, they had suggested that we will release the prisoners, and you also have to remove oil embargo which is placed on Iran. Finally, on January 20th, 1981, which coincided with the new US president taking over the oath, that is your Ronald Reagan. Within Ronald Reagan 20 minutes of his inaugural, your hostages were released. Okay, once your hostages were released, this was one of the important things that your Ronald Reagan had made a important aspect with respect to his presidency. How did this impact USA? If you see, first and foremost, this severely reduced the morale of your USA because it got hit so badly. Second thing, your military posture. From now on, US becomes extremely more active in your Middle East. The national humiliation and strong leadership was the one that changed a lot of things in your USA. Coupled with 1980 election where your Jimmy Carter lost and Ronald Reagan became the president. Further on, he would bring in the Carter Doctrine wherein US would use force to protect the Persian Gulf. Your Iran from now on went into your permanent hostility with USA and anti-US sentiments. What was the impact on Iran? Completely international isolation, which was imposed on Iran even by the allies, and also anti-US ideology became stronger. The diplomatic break, again, the once friend, now ally became your enemy. Economic sanctions started affecting Iran, and Iran became a theocratic state. Still today, we do not have any normalcy of relations between them. This is what led to your Iran, the sanctions, nuclear ambitions, ongoing crisis are all mixed together into this. The concept of Gulf oil security drives the US foreign policy. Large amount of proxy wars with respect to your Iran and your Hezbollah, all these proxy wars. Counter-terrorism, in fact, your IRGC was labeled as a terror outfit. by your USA, Gulf militarization started. This had a huge shift in your geopolitics of West Asia. So the Iranian hostage crisis transformed your US-Iran relations from allies to enemies. Okay. With this, we come to the end of the content. If you like our content, subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, share it along with your friends. Thank you.